So I mentioned we have a great show. Last week I brought my brother Zack on, and we did a little fantasy shootout, if you'll remember, where we each picked our top. We each picked one quarterback, two running backs, two receivers, and a tight end for Week 16 to have the best total fantasy week, and we were going to put those together and and see who won. So I'm going to bring Zack in here, and we're going to talk about this. Zack, welcome to the show, bud.
What's up, Mike? How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm pretty good besides, pretty rough fantasy week for me. Let me ask you, is it more tragic to start Cam Newton in Week 16 or start Derek Carr in Week 15 to play one drive and then start Matthew Stafford in Week 16 to play one drive? Yeah.
I would have. You got to start Cam Newton. At least he scored a touchdown, dude.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Brutal. Brutal.
QB came back to bite me. Yeah.
Speaking of brutality and losing in fantasy, Zack, we had our fantasy shootout.
Yep.
Last week. We were both pretty confident in our teams. I mean, we had the entire pool of NFL players to choose from. All right. Now here's the results. My team, with a total of 133.92 fantasy points in a full point PPR. Your team, 79.72 points.
Yeah.
That's a beatdown.
I think if you would have just had Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, they would have scored more than my entire team.
Just about.
Yeah.
Just about.
But I can't take complete blame for this. First of all, we see the worst game of Patrick Mahomes' career. Okay, I could have never predicted that. Waller doesn't get a target after halftime, pretty much.
Yeah.
A.J. Dillon gets 4 carries to Aaron Jones's 10, and Aaron Jones still had 94 yards. But Derrick Henry gets pretty much stalemated. The Titans look terrible. Jared Goff gets hurt, and I started Robert Woods. We both had Robert Woods, didn't we?
We both had Robert Woods, yeah. And he did not perform well. I think he was the worst. I think he scored the least. Actually, let me check. Yeah, Robert Woods had 8.9 points, and he was the lowest scoring for both of us. So at least we both missed on the same guy. But I had Lamar Jackson, who had, over 21 points against the Giants. You went with Pat Mahomes, who actually had, 19 fantasy points. So he was right there with Lamar. I mean, it's a bad game for Pat Mahomes. Yeah. But it's not like we were working on a salary. We were just picking the best players. So we kind of evened out there. Then you said you had Aaron Jones, who did have 98 yards, ended up with 12.8 fantasy points in a full point PPR. I had Nick Chubb, who had a brutal game, like yardage wise, but he did score a touchdown to salvage that. Ended up with 17.5 fantasy points. I got the edge on you there. Then you said Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry did not catch a pass. He had 98 rushing yards, ends up with 9.8 fantasy points. And isn't that crazy how he has almost 100 yards and we're like, geez, Derrick Henry, you really let me down in the fantasy championship. Like, that's how good he is.
What do you have, 23 carries?
Something like that, yeah.
So it's like, you expect something more out of Derrick Henry when he's getting that type of volume, just because that's what we've come to expect from Derrick Henry is 23 carries and 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's like, oh yeah, Derrick Henry.
That is what he does. That is what and even in the snow in Lambeau, you would have thought that game would have been, more of a ground and pound kind of game. Give it to Derrick Henry, let him run people over. But that is not what happened because. Well, we'll get to that. But my second running back was David Montgomery, ran all over the Jaguars, had 20 fantasy points. That Sunday night game in the snow in Lambeau was not a ground and pound game because Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams, who was my wide receiver 1. My God, Davante Adams, what an absolute beast. 3 touchdowns, over 140 yards, and 43 fantasy points. He by himself won me this little fantasy shootout that we had. I mean, if you didn't have Davante Adams, and no one had Kamara, neither of us chose Kamara, so I went with Adams. He went off. Your wide receiver 1 was DeAndre Hopkins, who had a salvageable game, 12.8 fantasy points, but that was just all around poor performance from the Cardinals. So unfortunately, DeAndre Hopkins felt that bad performance from Kyler Murray. You hate to see that, but it is what it is. We both had Robert Woods, and then the tight ends. I had Kelsey, who had 22.8, called a touchdown. You had Darren Waller, who did have 16 points. I mean,
but that was like 16 points in the first half.
I know.
Really stole the show.
Well, because the Raiders are a bad team. Yeah. John Gruden is I hate to say that John Gruden's a bad coach because I never thought he was, but he was. He is. Let's see. Steve says Josh Allen had more touchdown passes at Gillette Stadium than Cam did in one game.
Wow.
God.
Yeah, that's rough, Cam.
Jeez. Yeah. You think Bill Belichick doesn't know that either?
Fairness. Who is Cam really throwing to? N'Keal Harry?
Yeah, N'Keal Harry. Jacoby Myers?
Jacoby Myers did.
James White?
Season he was, beginning of the season, Jacoby Myers was attractive. He was sexy. He was a burner who's scoring points and breaking off some big plays. But I didn't see him at all last night. I saw zero Jacoby Myers. Did he even have a catch? Probably not. Cam.
I don't think he did. I mean, like I said, Cam had 34 passing yards, dude.
He got pulled halfway through the third.
They got to see what they have with Stidham, though, because, they know they're not – Cam's not coming back to the Patriots. He might not come back to the league. That's why I had to wear his jersey. I mean, I got a rep. This jersey was so nice 5 years ago, 10 years or 6 years ago.
Still nice. Just a shitty player.
What'd you say?
Nice jersey, shitty player.
Well, 2015 MVP when I got the jersey year before that. So just saying it. Maybe I called it. Oh, and I got Lamar Jackson's jersey the year before he won MVP. So whose jersey am I going to get next? That's my question. Is they're going to win MVP?
You want to get Dobbins? Help us out?
Yeah, exactly. I should get a Dobbins jersey, but Wyatt asks, is Josh Allen worth a 6-round keeper? This is a standard half-point PPR, 1 quarterback league. I would say, Wyatt, yes, he is, because he's, like I said, his development from last year has just increased so much. He should win most improved player and could be in the MVP conversation. So if he's getting that much better in 1 year, think of how much better he's going to be next year. And I normally don't like taking quarterbacks in the first 5 rounds, but at round 6, Josh Allen's going to be a top 3 quarterback going off the board. If you want to just be comfortable, lock in your QB for a 6-round keeper. I think that's fair. I think that's a good play. I mean, he's going to have Stephon Diggs. He'll probably have Smokey Brown back. Hopefully he's healthy. So yeah, I love Josh Allen. He is the goal line back in Buffalo too. Yes, Wyatt, that's a good keeper. All right. Wyatt's got another comment. All right. Is Stephon Diggs the second best receiver in the NFL? Statistically, he's the best this year. Is he the second? I mean, he's the best route runner. He's the best route runner in the league. He's a Maryland product. You love to see those Terrapins out there doing stuff on the field, but it's got to be Devontae Adams number 1, of course. When Michael Thomas is healthy, really hard to argue that he's not number 2. I do love DeAndre Hopkins because his catch radius is insane, but Stephon Diggs is the purest route runner in the league. So it's arguable. What do you think, Zach?
Personally, I have Keenan Allen over Stephon Diggs just because I think Keenan Allen is the best route runner, even though they're both top tier. As far as number 2 goes, you could definitely make an argument for him, especially looking at this year. How much of that is kind of coattailing off of Josh Allen's success, or did Stephon make Josh Allen? That's a debate, you could have for hours. But I think it's clear that Stephon Diggs is no longer the 1B like he was in Minnesota. It was like Thielen and Diggs and Thielen. Stephon has taken over. He's now in that upper echelon of receivers where in fantasy you might see him go early 2nd round,
That's a great keeper pick, depending on where you were able to get him. Because, he is the top dog now in Buffalo with a real gunslinger that's not afraid to just absolutely launch it, take chances like Josh Allen. So, Steph Diggs, great players. All right, now.